Welcome into Locked On Phillies. It's the day before the trade deadline, and we have the latest rumors from everything concerning the Philadelphia Phillies on today's episode. So, without further ado, let's get going.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. I've been talking Phillies baseball for years over on 97.5 The Fanatic. Played college ball, played semi-pro ball. Happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. As a lifelong Phillies fan, I'm joined by my co-host back there. If you're watching on YouTube, Mr. Broom. He's not going to say much. He's just a broom. But because the Phillies swept the Pirates yesterday, he will indeed be joining me until the end of this next series. So there you go. That's our squad here on Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can buy a car entirely online and have it delivered straight to you, so you never have to go to a dealership again. So next time you need to buy a car, just grab your phone, go to vroom.com, and check out thousands of great cars. Shout out to a new sponsor there, our friends over at Vroom. Now, we will preview the Phillies two-game set with the Atlanta Braves coming up later in this episode. But, of course, the pressing news of the day. It is the day before the trade deadline, and as of the time I'm recording this, which is a little bit past 6:20 Eastern Standard Time, the Philadelphia Phillies have done relatively nothing. Now, they did make a trade. Edmundo Sosa was traded for Jojo Romero this weekend. We discussed that and talked about what Edmundo Sosa can bring to this team, which frankly isn't much compared to what Phillies fans were looking for when we got closer to the trade deadline. And knowing Dave Dombrowski's track record, his ability to make trades that take teams from okay to contender, that takes teams from contender to World Series contender, stuff like that. And the Phillies are in the situation where Dave Dombrowski is going to be trying to make moves to take them from a good team to a lock playoff team. Now, how they'll compete when they get there, we'll see. But I do believe that moves made prior to 6 p.m. tomorrow, which is the exact trade deadline, 6 p.m. August 2nd, that will be the catalyst for a playoff run for the Philadelphia Phillies. And I still think there are multiple moves coming for the Phillies. It feels like it. I trust Dave Dombrowski. The market's still interesting. And we haven't had that many trades come down yet. Most of them, I'd imagine, will be later tonight and over the course of tomorrow during the day. By the way, we'll have all your latest on Locked On Nows, so make sure you're locked into that. I'll be posting anything that the Phillies trade. There are posts on trades from other teams to keep you up to date on all the news circulating around baseball. Here's my point when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies, though. We need to continue to be patient. I've seen way too many people worried about, well, where's Dave Dombrowski? What's he doing? Why haven't the Phillies signed anybody or traded for anybody, rather? Why haven't the Phillies done anything? This guy's available. That guy's available. This guy's off the board. That guy's off the board. Like, take a deep breath. Calm down. There's a trade deadline for a reason. Here's what you sound like when you do this. And we've all been in this spot, so let's try and put ourselves in the student's shoes rather than the parents. You'll understand why I'm saying that in a second. This reminds me of when I was in high school and I would have a project due on Friday. And it was like Wednesday. And my mom was like, have you done your project yet? Is it done? What are you doing? Why aren't you doing it right now? Deep breath, Mom. I've got another day and a half. It might seem like I'm cramming. I know how much time I need. I've got it under control. It is Wednesday. It is not due till Friday. Let's take our time. Now, obviously, my high school projects or essays are not the same level of importance as the Major League Baseball trade deadline and Dave Dombrowski as president of baseball operations. But give them to the deadline, okay? We're going to have plenty of time between August 2nd, 2022, and when the playoffs start to rip Dave Dombrowski if he doesn't do anything or doesn't do enough to get the Phillies there. There's going to be plenty of time. But in the next, we're just under 24 hours. In the next 24 hours, just slow down, observe, take a deep breath, and see what's going on. Now, some interesting moves have been made today that are ones that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to want to keep an eye on. Frankie Montas was moved to the New York Yankees. He goes there along with Trevino, a reliever from there out in Oakland, and it kind of sets another standard on the market. So Luis Castillo already went to the Seattle Mariners, going from the Cincinnati Reds to the Seattle Mariners earlier this past week. And 3 of the Mariners' top 5 prospects, I think, went back in that trade. It was a big haul for Castillo. Good for the Reds, good for the Mariners because it makes their rotation playoff worthy. And they're trying to compete out there in the AL West to find one of the wild card spots. And it looks like they have a good chance of doing so with some of the young talent they've amassed. But Luis Castillo originally set the precedent for the market. And then, Frankie Montas gets dealt, and that's another guy that sets up to show you what the Phillies would have to spend for a starting pitcher. Now, they're not going to get a player of that caliber. I wouldn't expect Martin Perez to be that guy. I wouldn't totally expect Jose Quintana to be that guy, even though Quintana seems a little bit more realistic. He's been good for the Pirates, but he's not an exceptionally elite pitcher. But I'm looking more at a Tyler Mahle from the Cincinnati Reds. And you look at a guy like that, you wouldn't have to touch Mick Abel. You wouldn't have to touch Andrew Painter. You wouldn't have to touch Griff McGarry. You wouldn't have to touch Ben Brown, who's a young up-and-coming pitcher, just got promoted to Double-A, who the Phillies like a lot, big strikeout guy. You probably wouldn't have to touch Logan O'Hoppe. So you could get away with not moving one of your top prospects and figure everything out there. So a guy like Tyler Mahle, as I get choked up a little bit, a guy like Tyler Mahle would fit in nicely into what the Phillies are looking for. I still kind of like a dark horse, Zach Greinke from the Kansas City Royals. Not a lot of buzz about Greinke because he's not that desirable of a pitcher. I have just an instinct about him, though. Expiring deal, aging guy, not what he used to be in his heyday with the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. But here's why I like Zach Greinke. He's a guy that's been there before. You'd only be asking him to be the 5th starter on this team. He can handle that role. He's on an expiring deal. You can cut bait at the end of the year if it doesn't work out. He's not a young player. You don't feel any pressure to sign him or extend him or anything like that. And he's pitched in playoffs over and over and over again. He's pitched in high leverage situations. Sometimes you'll see guys at the trade deadline that'll pitch for a Cincinnati Reds or an Oakland Athletics. And Luis Castillo and Montas are not those guys. They have a proven track record, and they've had a really good year this year. Those are bona fide good players. But sometimes you'll see a young arm come up, have a great year for a bad team, get dealt to a contending team, and all of a sudden be pitching innings that feel like they matter more. He'll be pitching in full stadiums instead of half-full stadiums. He'll be playing against opponents that are playoff caliber that you have to beat instead of going out there and not having any pressure on you whatsoever, regardless of who you're lining up against, because the team you were on is so bad. And that could lead to, it doesn't always, but it always creates the potential for a regression because those players are not used to, frankly, big situations at the major league level. Zach Greinke is not that guy. He's absolutely used to big situations at the major league level. So that's why I kind of would think that's very cool. Noah Syndergaard, another one of those guys. He doesn't quite have the resume that Greinke has, but another guy that's been around for a while. He's out there in Los Angeles with the Angels. He's certainly available. Maybe the Phillies go and get him. And then some relievers are still out there. The reliever market has not really taken shape yet. David Robertson, Michael Givens, both available up there in Chicago. Matt Moore available down there in Texas with the Rangers. Some names that you might be familiar with, but those are guys, and some of them former Phillies, that have had great years that could be available, so we'll keep an eye on that. My point being is there's a lot of guys still out there, and I haven't even mentioned position players yet. Michael A. Taylor available, Whit Merrifield available, Brandon Drury available, guys that would add a nice right-handed bat to the Phillies lineup, and some thinking about Michael A. Taylor, who could play an outstanding center field for this team. Calm down, okay? There's only been a handful of trades made so far. It's been mainly the big-time contenders, and the Philadelphia Phillies are not big-time contenders. They're one of the dogs at the bowl, to use the expression from Moneyball, where Billy Beane, or Brad Pitt, who portrayed Billy Beane, called the Oakland Athletics the runt of the litter. The Phillies aren't the runt of the litter. They're one of the dogs at the bowl, but they're not the top dogs. So wait your turn. Let the market develop, understand what you're going after this year, and get ready to take care of business once the market is set by the bigger fish. And that's what the Phillies are waiting for. Sometimes in the next 24 hours, they're going to make a move that impacts their playoff ability. I firmly believe it. I have faith in Dave Dombrowski, and you should too. But in the meantime, just hunker down, sit on the couch, off night tonight for the Philadelphia Phillies. Put on Netflix. Don't worry about it. Turn the notifications on your phone. And when a move gets made, we will react to it. But until then, don't worry about overreacting. Give Dave Dombrowski a chance because he has a track record that shows that he's earned our faith. Not in Philadelphia, but in Boston, in Detroit. He's a guy that knows what he's doing. So rest easy knowing that Dave Dombrowski's at the helm. And if it doesn't work out, well, I will come on and rip him just like everybody else at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So that's where I stand on the trade deadline. Again, we'll keep you updated on any breaking news. So continue to be locked in on what we're putting out here at Locked On Phillies. And follow me on Twitter at ConnorThomas975. Follow Locked On Phillies on Twitter at LO_Phillies. It's something to focus in on because this is one of the busiest times of the year for Major League Baseball season. Phillies are not busy today. They have an off day, but coming up next, I'll tell you why this series in Atlanta, even though it's 2 games, is hugely important for momentum and for the start of what I think is going to be a big stretch of the season for the Phillies. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Phillies. All right, now I want to tell you about my friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is awesome. You're gearing up for fall. You need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders, and LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. That's the most important part. We all like free stuff, right? It's awesome. Create a free job. You can post it in minutes. The job is not free. The job post is free. You can post it in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. And that's a lot of people to reach. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. I don't know if you knew this, but every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. That's how Mr. Broom got his job here at Locked On Phillies. I was looking for a broom to celebrate Philly sweeps, went on LinkedIn, and his profile was right there. And he's been doing a great job leaning back there. If you're watching on YouTube, he's leaning on the wall behind me. So go ahead and post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, it's time to talk Phillies, Atlanta Braves, down there in Atlanta, Georgia at Truist Park. The Phillies just took a series, took 2 of 3 from the Atlanta Braves, so a series win, and they've won 6 of their last 7 games in total, just in general, not against Atlanta, counting those 4 games against Pittsburgh, obviously, but a big series. I'll tell you about it in just a second, but I want to thank you again for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. And the MLB Trade Deadline is coming up tomorrow, August 2nd at 6 p.m. I told you all about it in the first segment. And Locked On MLB has all the breakdowns. Locked On Phillies will have rapid reactions to any move made. It's going to be awesome. And subscribe now to your favorite Locked On podcast, which, of course, is Locked On Phillies, on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, so you get notified when each episode premieres and you don't miss anything with all of the big news coming out on the trade deadline. So that's how you get all of our information for these big moves that are up and coming. I'm sure the Philadelphia Phillies are going to do something. What is it? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out because even I don't know right now. Only Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies brass knows. But let's talk about what we do know. The Philadelphia Phillies have an interesting series down in Atlanta, a 2-game set against the Braves. Now, I still don't believe that the Phillies are going to challenge for the division. I don't think it's going to be the case. I know that they're technically not out of it, and they've been good lately, and they just took a series from the Braves, and you never know. The Braves are significantly more talented and the defending World Series champions. The Mets are significantly more talented, and the Mets are one of the better teams in baseball. But winning these games still puts you in a better position for the 3rd or even the 2nd wild card spot, with San Diego not that far away. The Padres, by the way, acquiring Josh Hader today, one of the best closers in baseball. So a little bit tougher to catch them, but hey, you never know. He's just a closer. It's not like they got an MVP candidate or something. So we'll see how that plays out. But the Phillies have a tough game in Game 1, which is tomorrow night at 7:20 7:20 p.m. down there in Atlanta. Just a quick 2-game set, so you'll have to sweep if you want to win the series, and game 1 is going to be difficult. First of all, they face Spencer Strider, who he's listed as 6 foot. He's not 6 foot. I'm like 5'11", 6 foot on a good day. And when I was in the locker room in the clubhouse following the Atlanta Braves game that he pitched against the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park last week, I might have had like an inch or two on him height-wise. Now, he does have a great mustache. We both do. And did a little mustache talk. Just told him, nice mustache. Appreciate it, as I'm the mustachioed man myself. But he's, besides his stature, he's an incredible pitcher, though. He's been really good this year. A young pitcher, so he's still going to have hiccups at points, and maybe he has one tomorrow night against the Phillies. But he's been really good against them so far this year, and he was really good against them in this past series. Meanwhile, the Braves get to face Nick Nelson and the dreaded spot start, the bullpen game. Now, Nick Nelson's been good this year in long relief situations, but you don't want to see him starting a game against Spencer Strider and against the Atlanta Braves. The reason why he is no fault of the Phillies, no fault of anyone's. Kyle Gibson had a death in the family. He is on the bereavement list. He's still with his family. We continue to wish him and his family all the best as he deals with a tough time personally. He will not be able to make his start tomorrow night, which is why the Phillies are now going with Nick Nelson. Now, it's Nick Nelson for the time being. It's certainly possible that a trade is made later tonight. Someone is on a plane, or maybe it's someone who's close by to Atlanta, Georgia, playing a series, I don't know, in Texas, playing a series maybe in like middle America out there, St. Louis, stuff like that. So you'll never know where these guys are coming from, who it could be. Maybe they make a trade for a starter who's scheduled to throw tomorrow. Syndergaard, I believe, is scheduled to be the Tuesday starter for the Los Angeles Angels, if that matters at all to you. But for now, it's Nick Nelson, and that spot start is going to be a little bit difficult for the Philadelphia Phillies to overcome as they take on the Atlanta Braves in Game 1. But Game 2, it's Zach Wheeler facing off against Charlie Morton. If you remember, Charlie Morton got touched up when he saw the Phillies this past series that the Braves and Phillies faced each other, ended up getting the loss in the final game, which the Phillies won 7-2. And Morton gave up a lot of hard contact in that game. He just didn't have it that game. He talked about it post-game in the locker room. He clearly wasn't feeling great that game and about his performance. Zach Wheeler, meanwhile, Wheeler's just been dominant. He was dominant against Pittsburgh on Thursday. He's been really, really good all year. Zach Wheeler is going to handle his business against the Atlanta Braves. The question is, will it be enough for the Phillies to win? They'll have to continue to hit like they did in Pittsburgh, but that's a pitching matchup that I think benefits the Philadelphia Phillies. So, hey, would we take a split against the Atlanta Braves? You're darn right we would. Absolutely. And maybe lightning strikes with a spot start on Tuesday, or you get to Spencer Strider early. He has one of those young player hiccup games, and you take advantage of that. And maybe there's a sweep in there. But you got to take at least one. And if I was a betting man, I'd bet on the Wheeler game being the one that the Phillies take. But a great opportunity down in Atlanta to pick up even more games in the division, even more games in the wild card, because the Braves, even though they're super talented, are still in that first wild card spot in the National League. And just further proof that the Phillies are heading into a hot stretch late in the season. And these are the type of stretches at this time when you win 5 out of 6, and then you turn that into 7 out of 9 and 12 out of 14 games, and just projecting that out, that can put you into a playoff spot firmly. So we'll keep an eye on everything going down in Atlanta, and I'll have a deeper preview of Game 1 on tomorrow's episode because, of course, off day tonight. But tomorrow's episode is going to be hugely trade deadline. And rounding out Locked On Phillies, I'm going to tell you about a huge acquisition that I know for sure. I've got some inside information for you on a big acquisition that I know the Philadelphia Phillies are going to make. I've talked to my sources, and this is it's happening. So stay tuned next for some great news here on Locked On Phillies. As I fight with an eyelash in my eye or something, I want to take the time to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events, the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including the MLB, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, combat sports, esports, golf. They got everything. You could list it all. You can buy ping pong, darts, whatever you come up with. If it's a sports competition, then BetOnline has info and odds on it. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they got you covered on all of it. So head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, are you ready for the huge news about the Philadelphia Phillies' newest acquisition? He's a left-handed power hitter. He plays at the outfield and can actually field his position, and he's an MVP level talent. I hear he's going to wear number 3. Yeah, I know. I baited you a little bit there. But Bryce Harper is going to come back for the Philadelphia Phillies at some point this year. We got great news today. Last Monday, he went in for a doctor's consultation to see if he could take the pins out of his injured left thumb. He got, I believe it's 3 pins put in his broken thumb. That was the original surgery. Last Monday, he went to see if he could get them taken out. Said not quite ready yet. Come back in a week. We'll see what we can do the following Monday. Well, the following Monday's today, and the news today is that the pins were removed. Everything looks good in Bryce Harper's thumb. Now, I'd imagine you're looking still at 3 weeks to 4 weeks worth of recovery time. Taking pins out, it is another surgery. Like that's them going in his thumb again. You have to take time to rehab that, rest it, everything. You'll have to do a minor league stint. God bless those minor league pitchers that have to face Bryce Harper in a couple weeks. But it looks like at the end of August, maybe even early September, depending on how he progresses with the rehab, Bryce Harper will come back. And that's a trade deadline acquisition. He's not going to play for a little bit, but you're adding a guy to a team that's been in playoff position, that is the reigning MVP of the National League, was incredible to start the year, had a chance to compete for his second straight MVP trophy, despite just DHing. And I know I said he could play the field. I don't think he'll end up playing the field. I think he's still going to have issues with that elbow. And I haven't heard anything that his right elbow's gotten any better. But having him back in the lineup changes things. Derek Hall's been a nice piece. But could you imagine that instead of Derek Hall, you have Bryce Harper? Yeah, that's an upgrade. So the Phillies will make other trades, but their biggest trade deadline acquisition, Bryce Harper, got his pins out. He's going to be back at some point this year. We'll see when and what he looks like when he gets back, but that's a huge add to a team that's been very good. And Gene Segura, it's very possible he plays for the Major League club this week. So a couple good signs there on the injury front for the Philadelphia Phillies. Listen, they're gearing up for the playoff push, and everything looks good. And you're going to want to be with us right here on Locked On Phillies as they make that push. Now, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your next listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan. Sully, he'll have the latest news on the trade deadline, all the big storylines around baseball. It's your number one spot for trade deadline information. So go ahead and check out Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So I'm going to go back to my phone because it's been buzzing off the hook to see if the Phillies have done anything while I'm recording this. I'll keep you updated on the latest trade news and everything. And tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the Braves 2-game set down there in Atlanta. So, hey, all that to discuss. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies.